Hey, Trails Collective world. This is Ian from the, coming at you from the Trails Collective, broadcasting from Finger Lakes Running Company here in Ithaca, New York. Coming at you live with another round here. So what's shaking? I guess winter still kicking for those of us in the Northeast. But it was a beautiful afternoon. Hopefully it was in your neck of the woods as well, and you got out for some action. So let's see what's shaking. This week, we will give you a few events on the Ultra Sign Up Hot List, a few results from this past weekend with a few special guests. One, we will have Tristan Baxendale. Hopefully, if he's able to log in and cue us into his second place finish at the Greenbrier Ultras that ran down in Boonesboro, Maryland. And we will also have with us this evening two individuals from the Mount Tammany 10. And that is an event that's been somewhat under the radar, and we've helped them to keep it under the radar, but it's out there and formal and a pretty burly event. So we will bring you this week Justin Lewandowski, who was the top finisher on the day in the men's field, as well as third place overall, which was Cali Janulis. And Cali, I'll check that when you are on air. And so we'll dig in a bit into the Mount Tammany 10. And then with us later in this episode, going long, will be one of the Further in My Route sessions, which will be longtime friend Yassine Diboun. And we will have him on from about 7:30, carrying us through to about 9 o'clock tonight. And if you're tuning into this post-mortem, it will be, roughly a half hour into the episode, we will bring him through. So let's get into some of what's been shaken in the at least Northeast trail running world. Actually, let's give you the hot list. There's just a few items or a few races that are still open in registration, but about to close out. So if you are interested in these, now would be the time to get on them. There is the Enchanted Forest Ultra in Stratford, Connecticut, set for April 23rd. The Finger Lakes 50s, 50 mile in Hector, New York, typically, I think, around 4th of July weekend, give or take. And the Quest for the Crest 50K in Burnsville, South Carolina, slated for May 21st. All are open on Ultra Sign Up, and now would be the time to get on them if you are so inclined. Actually, let's go in before we get into some of the results. For sure, give a thanks, as I always need to, for all of you out there who are tuning in, either now or sometime after, in rewatching the broadcast. Those of you who support the Trails Collective and what we're trying to do here with liking the channel, sharing in your own networks, reaching out to friends, checking in with us on tips or content, those taking out your own some of your own time out of your days or evenings to check in with us here on some of these TC Live episodes. And big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters out there who, even if it's just a couple bucks a month, goes a long way, and we are able to turn it back around into support for athletes and events and providing more exposure for all of that focus on the Northeast here at the moment. So thank you for all of that. So this past weekend, there were a few that ran. There was the Big Woods Half in Elverson, PA, went down. The Spring on the Trails endurance runs ran in LaGrangeville, New York. A new course format and record set all around with around 80 finishers across 3, 6, and 12-hour options. The Miocene Epic Endurance Challenge in Lusby, Maryland. Another solid performance from Nicholas Wurz went down and set a new event record at 46.8 miles. That's a timed one. Actually, I want to say that was a 6 hour, in which case Nicholas at 46 miles in 6 hours. That's pretty stellar. I'll have to look back at that. And top woman of the day, Kennedy Hall with 31.2 miles. The inaugural Maple Madness went down in Binghamton area with 75 finishers in the 10K, 80 in the 5K. Nice work to that crew in getting it off the ground. And we'll have a couple that will be the features of the evening here. So the first one, we're going to dig in a little bit to the Greenbrier Ultras in Boonesboro. And bringing into the thread here would be Tristan Baxendale. Tristan, thank you for being on with us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. And so many of you in the Northeast hopefully have crossed paths with Tristan out on the trails, whether in a training effort or events. Tristan is based in Endicott, New York. He's got roughly 39 races under his belt in Ultra Sign Up, so probably a little bit more than that. Distance is up to 200 miles, a handful of trophy finishes, and has the MMT 100 and Rim to River on deck for this year. So Tristan, I just called you Tristan because that's where my head's at the moment. It's not even a word, but that's just kind of where my head's at. It is good to have you on. So, and a little bit more intro because I think it'll be pertinent in me about to ask Tristan how he's feeling here. So Tristan, for those of you who don't know Tristan, tends to not exactly choose the easiest courses out there in some regards. Has a affinity toward technical climbing, beating himself down pretty good. You may find him out on the trail, just hitting himself with a log, maybe. But finishes at Manitou, Hellgate, Grindstone, Eastern States, Green Monster, Georgia Death Race, Virgil, Crest, Cruel Jewel, and a Mount Tammany 10, amongst others. So with all of those burly, gnarly events under your belt, Tristan, how are you feeling after this weekend?
I'm feeling pretty good, actually. This is probably the fastest 100 I've recovered from, or the fast, But the only thing is I got a fat ankle. No pain. It's just really fat.
And nothing you tweaked at the moment. It's just kind of, hey, where'd that come from?
About 40 miles into the race, the Greenbrier Ultra there, started getting like a calf pain, and it ended up swelling up a little bit. And since then, it's moved to my ankle. So it's a little concerning, but I don't think it'll be that bad.
Yeah, I wonder if the swelling, concerning in terms of the swelling going more distal. It's good that I guess it's going down some. Got anything rocking on like compression socks or anything?
Nope. Just icing a little bit, some ibuprofen, but yeah.
Let's get yourself into Confluence Running down there in Binghamton and pick yourself up a pair of CEP compression socks. And
that's a good idea. Good idea.
Saddle those up. But that was going to be, so it's great to hear that you're recovering well. I guess that was going to be one of the things I was going to be curious about before I have you dig into what Greenbrier is all about. So Tristan finished second overall on the 100-mile. Personal best time, as you referenced, for 22 hours, 1 minute. Was just beat out by a dude age 58. Dude,
he's like an OG trail runner, I think. I actually ran into him at Grindstone. It's kind of a weird, quick story, I guess. It just turned in the morning. We all kind of came down from the ridge, and it's freezing. And then this guy flies into the aid station behind me, older man, no shirt, cargo shorts on with like a Poland Springs water bottle tucked into his back pocket. Just pulls into the aid station, goes like, "Y'all got bacon?" Eats a couple slices of bacon, shoves a bunch of cookies in his pocket, and then like takes off. And I didn't see him again till the finish, and I kind of like zoomed by him to finish. But he's the guy that beat me on Saturday.
So payback. So you basically you took him there in the final feat of that one in Grindstone, or you glory dogged him there at the end?
Final like half a mile at Grindstone, and then he completely crushed me on Saturday. He beat me by like 2 hours or something, I think.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he remembered you, and he was like, "Dude, that guy, it's not happening again." That young buck.
Yeah,
I need to track him down.
A cool guy. Good runner. Like great runner. Great runner.
Anybody out there still rocking the cargo shorts and pulling spring water bottle in the back of their shorts and knowing exactly what they want in terms of the core necessities at aid stations? He's a
for sure.
Yeah. For sure. But in any case, so you still ran pretty fast. And so for Greenbrier, for those of you who don't or aren't too familiar, and I'm not too familiar with this either, so you can cue us in here in a second. Fairly mild course, so like 5 to 8 mile loop format, 750 to 1,000 feet per loop. So for 100 miles, what you racked in maybe like 10K of gain, give or take?
I measured 14,000.
14,000. Okay.
Yeah. I couldn't find too much information on the course beforehand, so I kind of went into it a little blind. But it was a lot tougher than I thought. Tougher. The race director Kevin there said that the trail wasn't really technical. It was, but it wasn't. It was a lot more technical than I thought it was going to be. I was hoping for a 5 mile loop, ended up being like an 8 mile loop. so that kind of changed things a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it was definitely a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be. And
Was that? Go ahead.
I think a lot of people thought it was tougher than they were expecting as well. A lot of first time 100-milers running this race, and there's way more dropouts than I thought there was going to be. I'm not sure what the number was, but I was expecting quite a few people to finish, and not as many people finished as I thought.
Huh. So I wanted, yeah, and I guess Kevin, I haven't met Kevin. I think we've connected a little bit in emails. Also goes back away, but I also, and when I was trying to quickly search for information on the race, yeah, it was like I think that there's probably more of the ultra sign up information page on the website is probably dedicated to who Kevin is and kind of his accolades, and even less like on the actual race. And then you could click through to his website, and it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm stuck in this like site that's like from 1992. Like I don't know where to find any information on this site.
Right.
So I could see going in feeling a little like I'm not totally sure what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of first time ultra runners out there, I mean, so did you leave thinking it was a pretty? I think that's how he phrases it. I think as well. He's trying to really get people out there and have them enjoy the day. You think it's still a good like first time distance or course for anybody out there? You just kind of have to have it in your head to be be prepared for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was talking to quite a few 100-mile rookies out there, and I was like, this is a great course to break in that 100-mile distance on. Just the looped aspect, the course went right through a parking lot, and you could park your car and use your car as an aid station in addition to their aid station. So, I mean, if there's somebody who struggles with aid stations or whatever, that would be perfect because you just go right back to your car. I mean, I guess it might make it a little bit tougher for people who want to drop out. You're right back at your car. Yep. It's easy to quit, but yeah, it was a good race.
That would be a good post-race survey then to question all those who did DNF and whether they had the option of the parking lot and their cars not being there, would they have gone on or would you have quit, right? Because right. As well as anybody out there in terms of the endurance events that you've done, I mean, it sure gets ugly at points. And, if you've got the easy outs, you're more apt to take those easy outs.
Absolutely. And this was actually the first 100-miler I've done on a looped course. Usually I just do big either point-to-points or big loops. And, races like that, you can drop out, but it's a lot tougher, I think,
Yeah. So then going through the loop course, how'd you end up liking the format? Was it kind of a welcome change up for you, or are you still like, "Ooh, that was pretty tough. I'm getting back to my point to point"?
Yeah, it's still early enough in the season, I guess, where most of my training runs are running around in circles in various places. So, I'm used to that. Yeah, it was nice. It was nice. Nice change of pace.
Yeah. And then, so on that tone of your body actually handling it pretty well, except for whatever you got going on swelling wise in that lower leg. I guess that speaks well because my question was going to be I imagine was more runnable as a course than most of the events that you've done for like longer swaths. So in some cases, I've found that the more runnable races are harder because you've got no excuse really to kind of walk out there to take it easy, and it's easy to overrun and easy to beat yourself down. But it seems like you did okay and didn't run into that.
Yeah, there was a lot of power hiking involved, at least for me. Each loop, the hills, there's, a couple longer hills throughout each loop, but with each loop, the hills just kept getting steeper and steeper. At least that's what it felt like. And at least in my experience, the combination of running and power hiking really kind of like saves my legs a little bit. I don't know if it's using different muscles or what, but I did quite a bit of power hiking.
Okay.
But, it wasn't for long periods of time, maybe a couple minutes of hiking, a couple minutes of running, a couple minutes of hiking, So.
Cool. So you have on deck this year, what are you playing? You got MMT and you got Rimmed River. Any others that you're eyeing up if they're still on the docket?
I've signed up for like everything. I got let's see, Massanutten coming up next. Hopefully World's End 100K. This is all if I stay healthy. But
Yeah, for
World's
sure.
End 100K, Manitou's Revenge, Eastern States, No Business 100, and then Rim to River.
Oh, so you do have a pretty full
Yeah,
docket.
and then if everything goes to plan, hopefully Hellgate again.
Uh-huh. And some of those I don't think I see, because right, some of those are using run sign up for registration.
Right, Eastern States and No Business, as
Uh-huh.
well as World's
World's
End
End.
use run
Yeah.
sign up. Yeah.
Yeah, I need a little bit more time in the day to make sure I'm scouring their sites as well to be getting all these results. And for the events that are still not using them, and I'm like, come on, make it
Yeah.
easy for the rest of us use to see people's results and see where
Yeah.
they're ranked or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, so it will be great to catch up with you maybe more this year on some of those, because I mean that's some good big events. I hope that it goes well, that you stay pretty healthy, because there are some beautiful events, and
Yeah.
you know what you're getting into with most of those at this point. So hopefully
Mhm.
that's pretty fun. So then maybe a takeaway question. So after a year or two of research, from asking friends to random aid station volunteers and fellow entrants, what did you learn about careers and how people feel about their jobs?
Well, I learned that most people don't like their jobs anymore. They, used to like it, and now they don't. So, and another thing I learned was a lot of people do a job they did not go to college for.
Uh-huh. And
Uh,
so those people that aren't liking it, are they have already exited, or they're just like, I don't know, but dude, don't go do my job.
yeah, I guess I got a lot of not weird responses, but mixed responses,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And nobody said don't do this job, but nobody said you have to do this job. It's great,
Uh-huh.
So it kind of still back at square one almost.
Damn that square one. All right. All right. Well, Tristan, thanks so much for taking a bit of your time this evening. And I look forward to catching up with you more, hopefully pretty soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very
All right.
much.
Thanks. Yeah. And congrats.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye.
man. All right. See ya. All right. And so next up, I am going to turn toward the Mount Tammany 10. And I am going to bring in Cali and Justin into the thread. Hello, Cali and Justin.
Hi.
How are you both doing?
Doing great. How about you?
I'm good. Yeah, we lost Justin. We'll bring it back in if he gets it back in terms of his connection. All right. So what we are going to chat on here for a little bit is the Mount Tammany 10. So the Mount Tammany 10, for those of you not in the know, is one that runs in the Water Gap area. And as you're going through, I think it's off of 80. Is that 80 or 84? What is that?
80. Yeah.
80. As you're going through Route 80, it's that steep head wall and kind of chasm that you go through. And it's that steep. And so they've run an event out there, which is the Mount Tammany 10. And it is 10 loops. Basically, what are they? 3.8 mile loops? Is that what it is? Something like that?
I think it's a little shorter, like 3.2 or 3.3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like 3.3, and you basically get like a mile up, which is switchbacks up a little bit, some technical terrain. You get a nice overlook at the top, and then you get a combination of starting into a technical part of the upper descent, and then it smooths out as you run along that creek flow, which is really beautiful. And then you have your interchanges in and out of the parking lot there. So, but a little over 1,000 feet. And so for cumulative gain over the 10 loops, did you guys both wear some sort of device that spit it out? Did you get somewhere around 10,000 feet? What'd you get?
I just had my phone running, so I had, I think, 12,000 feet, something
Okay.
like that.
Uh-huh. And Justin, did you get another figure in there? Justin, don't have audio maybe, or video, or the connection's a little off. You're just standing there with a bicep that looks about as big as my head, but no audio or video. So try maybe logging off and logging back in there again. So let's go in. We'll start with you, Cali, on Mount Tammany 10. So you, in my 5 seconds of stalking, you don't have any results in there in Ultra sign up. And did you have some longer trail efforts under your belt ahead of this?
No, this is like my first race I've ever done. I recently-ish got into running, like 2020, just like a lot of other people. And soon after I started running, I said, hey, a half marathon would be fun and intimidating. And then in 2021, I ran a marathon. And then this was kind of like the next step. I like love the water gap and have done a lot of different things out there. And so I found out about this race. My boyfriend also did it too. So he was like, let's do it together. And so training with a partner definitely helps a lot.
Cool. And what was the marathon you did in 2021?
Oh, it was just like my own thing, but it was on the Batona Trail in South Jersey. Yeah, I picked like the flattest possible course.
I was going to say, and I'll if Justin's able to log back on too, he's while he definitely has a number of ultra finishes under his belt the past couple of years, this is still somewhat of also an abrupt change for him as well in terms of the profile and the metrics of the course. So what so of all just like the next steps in going from the doing it down on the Batona Trail marathon to this, like what's the logic on I don't know, what's the thought train on picking this one?
Like I said, I really love that area, and it's beautiful. It sounds like you've been out there and know the trail a little bit. So yeah, it's just like a lot of fun to go out there. I like being on the trail among good people, and I really like training for things. So this was going to be like a cool first effort to like see how it would be to actually like run amongst like runners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what in your training efforts, did you do some training on the course then? Did you do some loops ahead of it?
Yeah, I had like 4 days I was able to get out there and actually train on Tammany. And the last one was like a week before the race. And that was like incredible. It was like a beautiful day outside. I got to like go over footwork and everything. So I went in like feeling really confident.
Right on. And what was you, what'd you go on those training efforts? What'd you get in terms of how many loops?
3.
3. And was that like the target, or did you do 3 and you're like, that's enough. I'm tapped out?
No, one of the times I like went there with a very specific goal, like I'm gonna get 6 done, and then it was just so icy and I didn't have spikes or anything, so I got 1 and wanted to like go curl up in a ball, so I did.
Yeah, and this so that's a big turnaround too. And this, you didn't, I mean, I guess the weather is a little bit shifty on Saturday. I noted some of Justin's photos in his Facebook page. Justin, can you hear us yet, or are you still kind of frozen in a frozen position? I think you still look frozen. Not sure what's going on there. Oh
no.
It looks like one photo was fairly sunny, looking kind of dry. Another one was snowed over, and I couldn't tell that was one of his training efforts. Did you guys get snow during the day, or was it kind of crazy
we
weather?
got everything. It was like the turbulent mix of all of it. It was supposed to like thunder at one point. I never heard thunder, but I had headphones in, so there could have been. But it was sunny. It was snowing. It was raining. Definitely windy. But it was an awesome day all around.
And you didn't end up needing something like micro spikes or anything out there? Did you get by without them, or did you take them into the race?
I ended up getting some after that day of training, and I brought them with me just in case, but it was just fine without it.
Right on.
Yeah.
And so when you got into and knowing what to expect and knowing what your body was ready for, and granted, you mentioned it was conditions based, where you could have used spikes out there on that training day. I mean, what was the thought train? I mean, you must have been pretty nervously excited knowing that you'd only been able to do a few loops out there, and here you are about to take a crack at 10 of them.
Yeah, that's like putting it mild. I was super nervous.
Yeah.
But I think that like nervous, you can kind of like translate that in a different way. So I just kind of like labeled it as excited. So I was like really excited for the race.
Yeah.
And I got my toes done, and they're like a speedy pink. So I was like, okay, if I got this, I could do it.
Right on. And so did it what'd you start feeling? I mean, did you get a few leaps in and you were like, oh man, like this is hard. I don't know. Or did you get in and you were just kind of focused and you kind of started feeling the beat down, but you stayed pretty focused and you're like, no problem. Like I got this, I'm going to do this. Or do you have moments of doubt out there or things you had to work through and kind of that ultra feel and kind of come back?
No, not at all. I like went in, I guess like, I did like the 4x4x48, like David Goggins challenge beforehand, which like totally is like mental strength all the way. And so I like fortified my mind and was like going in with like really positive attitude. And after the first 2 laps, that was like the fastest I'd ever run out there. So I was just like feeling really good. I had an awesome playlist. I was dancing my way up the hills and everything. So yeah, it was a good time. I remember like some of the laps were definitely a bit tougher than others, but you like see other people on the track. I remember Justin like sprinting by me uphill and I was like, wow, look at those thighs. So it's like definitely encouraging to see like the super fast guys go past you and like motivate you even more.
Did you mentioned that your boyfriend did it as well? Did you do it together out there or did you kind of do your own things and separate?
No, we did our own things. He came in 4th and I was like back in 17. So yeah, we were like both just trying to challenge ourselves.
Right on.
Yeah.
And Justin, I pulled you back in, but I think it still looks pretty frozen. Can you hear me or you still got no audio? All right. Well, let's talk now. We saw your big bicep to start. Now Cali's mentioned your big thighs out there in the course. So at least all the listeners out there know that you're a beefcake and that you have now the second fastest time that I'll tell them now on the Mount Tammany 10 course. And also coming at it from a fairly mild course metric background in terms of them being kind of flatter, non-technical. So Justin, I'll have you back on when another time when we can figure out the tech glitches there. But if you can hear me, you're still frozen, but it'll be great to catch up with you further. And for all the listeners out there, Justin had a phenomenal, looks like a phenomenal day. And it was a place that it was important to him. He'd lived, I think, in that area before, if I caught some of the posts. And so hopefully it felt really great. And so Cali, after getting through that, then so if you, how'd you recover? Your quad's a little hammered or you're doing all right or?
I recovered by the next day going back out to Tammany and highlining.
Oh, so, really?
Yeah. So, yeah. And today I went for a run. I'm feeling pretty good. Probably should have pushed myself a little bit more if I'm feeling like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're figuring that out, right? I mean, that's a tough course to just jump in and think you're going to overrun because if the wheels fall off and it gets ugly, I mean, that's a tough course for it to get ugly. I mean, you can kind of hike it out, but it's pretty burly. So is it leaving you craving more? I mean, this is a big jump for you on this one, relatively speaking, maybe, and it went well. So what else are you thinking of?
I was like checking out FKTs around here to see like what other lady cresters have been doing. And a lot of the like places around here don't really have times up for women yet. So I'm not super fast, but I think I'll like throw down the gauntlet and like get the ball rolling with that.
Yeah, for sure. And that's an interesting, another whole separate topic on the FKT scene. I'm not sure, probably not, but in terms of you catching some of our prior episodes. So last week, I think it was last week, time's a blur at the moment, had Bethany Gerritsen on. Bethany is an incredible athlete and individual based up in the Adirondacks who has done a lot of Adirondack FKTs. And she's, as an example, somebody that's going to stay pretty focused on some of the routes that have had histories to them, kind of in the spirit of trying to challenge others. So I would say by all means, go out there and blaze your path, create some new routes, hammer and create the where the benchmarks are and the bars are set for runs that are important to you. But it would be cool to see you, since you're interested in FKTs, then head after some of the already established ones. And again, just when I was trying to connect with you or find you and checked out some of your Facebook photos, looks like you've done some pretty cool hikes historically and gotten up into the mountains. It looked like maybe somewhere in New England, or you got a little bit of a hiking background.
Yeah, I've gone out. I did like Presidential Traverse back in 2020. That was a lot of fun. I want to go out and do Devil's Path this year. That would be a lot of fun. But those FKTs are crazy.
They are crazy. Yeah, they totally are.
Yeah,
you know, and
awesome.
You know, but you know, it's fun to see where you stack up there too, or even some of those events, whether you can jump into escarpment or I guess registrations maybe already closed out, but for maybe next year for Manitou's Revenge. I mean, you're now have a pretty good burly one under your belt that they'd take as a qualifier, but that would give you the Devil's Path and more, and kind of the escarpment blend. So if not already in your radar, for sure check out Manitou's. But it would be great to stay connected and kind of see where you go. And by all means, reach out to me if you want to join us for any of the Red Newt racing events. If you've actually recovered pretty well, one at the end of the month, April 30th, one of the races I put on is the Breakneck Point Trail Runs. That's over in Beacon, New York, and the marathon is on April 30th. And this year, it's the one of only 2 qualifiers for the U.S. team for Worlds. And so we've got a pretty deep field in men's. There are some fast women on deck so far, but it's not quite as deep. So in case it sounds fun, it's also a fairly burly course, but a fun one that I think is kind of like play. So for sure, shoot me a message if you check it out and you want to join us, and I'll follow up with you there.
Yeah, I've totally heard of it. It sounds pretty cool.
Cool. All right. Well, great job. I know Alec probably stoked to have you in the mix, and love seeing people throw down some pretty great efforts. So congrats, and it would be great to stay in touch.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, totally. All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.
All right. See ya. All right. Justin, we're going to give you one. Are you live? Audio? Still frozen. All right. We're going to catch you another round, Justin.
I can.
Oh, you're live? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring you.
Kind of choppy.
I'm going to bring Yassine into the thread here as well. Yassine, brother, it's good to see you, and I will intro you more appropriately here in just a second. So Justin, is the feed here pretty good? Somewhat responsive. I won't dwell on it if you're still kind of choppy. Yeah, kind of back to frozen. So Justin, I will we'll try again another round. But great job, man. And I will reach back out to you and we'll connect. Yassine.
How you doing, Ian?
It is fantastic to see you, buddy.
It's so good to see you too, my friend. And
I
don't encounter any technical glitches here because that usually seems to be my MO.
Yeah, there's so far this Lisa's platform's been pretty good. I think
it looks pretty cool.
Yeah. I think it's worked well. I think Justin's actually the first one since we've been using it where actually I take that back. There's maybe one other, but it's pretty clean. But how are you?
Doing well, man.
Are you home? Are you in some sort of work hole somewhere?
Yeah, I'm in my office, away from home, which is AKA my camper van.
Yep. It looked like something like that. What's her name again?
Dibs the Delica.
Hashtag
Dibs the Delica. It's a Mitsubishi Delica camper van, 1995. It's kind of my COVID baby. It really fits my lifestyle quite well, sleeping at the trailheads and doing aid stations and traveling around. And as of like today, going from one appointment to the next and, being able to cook some quesadillas on the stove in here and have a bathroom and a place to change and my little apartment on wheels,
That's awesome. And so are you in the home turf? You're just kind of bouncing around between clients?
I'm actually at the track right now. I every Tuesday night lead a track workout for folks in recovery from substance addiction. So that's what I'm getting ready for this evening and every Tuesday night. Super awesome group called Run TRG, which stands for the Recovery Gym. And it's been a great program. And so I had a nice chunk of time in between, picking up Farah from school and doing all that stuff. And before the track workout to join you on your show. So thanks for having me.
Cool. Absolutely. Yeah. And maybe we can dig into the TRG here as well in a bit. So for those who are live with us or connecting afterwards, so to introduce him more appropriately, Yassine Diboun is an athlete, Columbia Montreal, based in Portland, Oregon. More importantly, with Beast Coast roots in PA and with a segue into Trail Ultra here in Ithaca, New York. moved out to, I guess you've been in Portland, what, about 10 years now? 8
Well,
years? 12 years. Whew.
I know.
Yeah, dude, time
Hold on,
flies.
13. August 1st will be 13 years. I can't believe it.
Yeah. And he is also a co-owner and founder. Changed names there, right? I think of the Wy'east Wolfpack group training and coaching, also based in Portland. And do you do some private coaching on the side as well, or is it all through Wy'east? Or is it all rolled into one?
Yeah, it's all rolled into one. We have our hands in quite a few different things now. We've expanded into like youth programs and Run TRG, like I mentioned, as well as a lot of corporate wellness, fitness classes and yoga classes, which pay the bills. And yeah, we still do a lot of coaching.
So let's just start there, since it's, I guess, come up a couple times. So for those who aren't familiar, give us just the lay of the land with Wy'east. Why, where you came into it in terms of your concept in starting it, how it's been, and just tell us a little bit about it. What's Wy'east all about?
Totally. Well, first of all, Wy'east, not a lot of people know what that name is. It's spelled WY''EAST, so it can come off as a little choppy, but out here in the Northwest, it's the Native American name for Mount Hood, which is the volcano that we play on quite a bit, whether it's skiing or snowboarding or mountaineering or running around it. And it towers over Portland, so on a clear day, we get to see that mountain all the time, and we figured kind of to pay respect to the people before us to name our business after the mountain that we love so much. And another little twist was that my business partner's name is Willie W, and my name is Y, Yassine. So we kind of like that little twist as well. Yeah, so I was doing coaching when I first moved out here. I kind of was just doing private coaching on my own, and kind of one thing led to another, and Willie and I had become friends, and he basically was getting his personal training certification, and he was kind of seeking a career change, and he just kind of pitched this idea. I'm already doing a bunch of coaching and kind of established myself in the area through my own racing and running. He had this idea of kind of creating a business that helps people train through kind of customized, tailored training to culminate in like a retreat or a dream trip, if you will. That's kind of where we started. And then we started doing guided trips. It's just funny how things evolve in your business. And then we kind of got our foot in the door with corporate wellness fitness classes and trail running camps and kids youth programs. And so it's evolved, but at the core, it's still us working like one-on-one with folks or in group settings, doing clinics, doing classes, doing personal coaching, helping people work towards ultras or races or adventures of any length for that matter. And we also put on some retreats and trips. So we, like I said, we've got a lot of, we work a lot of aid stations at our local events, and we sponsor those race companies. And so, so similar to Red Newt, there's a couple different companies out here in Portland area called Go Beyond Racing and Daybreak Racing. So we partner with them, and then it's kind of a symbiotic relationship where we provide aid stations and energy and all that. And they like refer people to us via coaching and things like that.
Yeah. And so in that evolution, I guess that speaks to, it just came up with Tristan as I was talking to Tristan in where I took him in terms of careers, going into COVID with the great resignation window. I think he was one that found himself just reconsidering whether that's what he really wanted to kind of do in life. And I think stepped away. And so it was interesting. I ran into him a couple times, and he had mentioned in a couple of races, he just stopped at like aid stations as he was like fueling or whatever. And he just asked the aid station volunteers, I don't know what they did for a living and whether they liked it, and just trying to open himself up to new possibilities. But it's interesting to see the evolution or reevaluation of career. It seemed like you'd really, I mean, right? I mean, if you did the Yassine from, how old are you now? You're 43? Yeah, 43. So the Yassine of whatever it was, man, you know, like.
Well, let me put it this way. my first 100-miler that I ever did was your race, which the Virgil Crest Ultras, and I did that on my 30th birthday. So that puts
but
a little
even,
bit into context. So I started running ultras in like 2006, 2007, and jumped up fairly quickly in Ithaca, New York, where I met you, and did my first 100-miler at your race, which is always a special place in my heart. And then, you know, shortly thereafter, we had the opportunity to move to Portland. And I think it really, for my career, it was just about timing. Like Born to Run had just been written. Ultras became more mainstream. I kind of already had my foot in the door with some experience. I was kind of one of the few people that were kind of doing coaching at the time, because nobody really had a grasp on like how to train for these crazy races, right? And so I kind of went to school for like an exercise science related degree that we practice, you know, designing training plans and exercise prescription and those types of things. So I kind of just like folded that into our business and just started, you know, growing that and like evolving and changing things. And one thing led to another. And then we just became kind of this really well-established, recognizable company here in Portland, which is kind of a hotbed for trail running and ultra running.
Yeah, and even so a part of. So what I was going to say, but then I'll go into maybe this next tangent, was the Yassine of age, like the 20-year-old Yassine or whatever, like what you envisioned for yourself in terms of jobs, like career, where you were going to head, was probably not this, and then how you've allowed yourself and Willie as partner to evolve in the space. Do you think that some of the business, I guess, dynamics, the how much business there maybe was with, say, the group outings or whatever, was like, hey, maybe this isn't really working, but there's a bigger pod in group fitness? Was that more the predication, or is it more just following your own kind of hearts and what you're interested in? You're like, you know, maybe the groups would have worked, but this is kind of where we're flowing, and let's just make this work. And so it's more kind of your heart and mind as opposed to like a business evolution.
No, totally. It's a good question. We did find that there was a lot of red tape with these guided trips, as you probably know from all the stuff that you do, you know, to get permits and to get like an outfitter's guide, and all the trips that we wanted to go to were in wilderness areas, which were off limits to get these permits for commercial trips. So there was a lot of like red tape. And then, you know, there were some trips that we did that we put in all the time and effort and money into building it. And then it was a lot of energy with not that much profit. So we were like, and then you split that by 2 plus all the overhead. And it just was like, it didn't really make sense financially. So the group classes were something that we could kind of scale out. And then we had a woman contacted us one day. She's like, hey, would you ever come to like my office? We have a gym in our office. And I could get a bunch of people that are interested in this. And a light bulb went off for us. Literally, like, we were just like, that's brilliant. What's that building? What's that building? What's that building? And so we just started going around Portland, and Portland is a great city for that, because a lot of businesses really prioritize that sort of like lifestyle. They really incorporate that into their wellness departments in these offices, where they give people like extra time to like take care of themselves so they can become a more productive employee. So we started when we got into a few big companies out here, and now it's just like a major revenue stream for us, and we love it. We have trainers that represent us and yoga teachers that represent us. And I just went and did one today, and it's awesome. I mean, I love it. It's like getting people out of their desk, get them outside, get them moving, doing like functional movements, body weight exercises, and then just kind of like sparking the fire that like, yeah, you can do stuff. You know, you can do so much more than you think you can. Like, the world is your oyster kind of thing. Just because you're at this job Monday through Friday, like, there's a lot of time you're not here too, and start to open up their eyes and their minds to those types of things based on what we do. And of course, they're always just like, oh, you guys are crazy. I can't do what you do, but it's still, you know,
sure you can, right? I mean, I mean, maybe they're not going to, you know, arrive at the same podium that that Yassine Diboun might, but in terms of, you know, achieving those goals for them, I mean, I guess that's the beauty of ultra, right? And the more you do it, the more that you see people of all shapes and sizes and backgrounds and finishing these things, and so incredible. And I think that ultra is one of those things that has still, despite all of its growth, maintained its fairly grassroots feel. And for at least a lot of us, even if people don't stick around to kind of the closing bell at some of these races, I know for me, it's just as exciting seeing those people, you know, get in under the cutoff time as the leaders coming through. So
Totally.
But one of the things you said also, it came up in as I was connecting with Chrissy a couple weeks ago, where Chrissy, you know, we also collectively, there was no background here, right? There's no foundation when we were getting into this stuff. And we were still maybe like a second generation, or however you look at that in ultra. But for Chrissy, I don't know, when you were getting into it too in 2008, like it was still unknown. Like there wasn't a thing to be like an ultra coach.
I know.
Wasn't a viable or existing career or whatever.
Right.
And so I guess the Yassine of age 20, even if you wanted to, like, you just can't predict, I guess, where some of these things will go. And yet here you've arrived.
Totally. And I mean, with your business, and I know you've got your hands in a lot of different things as well. I mean, things kind of like float to the top, and like things just like evolve kind of organically. Like, for instance, our youth programs, same way as like the corporate wellness. Like I was working at my daughter's school, and I was taking these kids outside, taking them to the trails, and, you know, people would see me doing this and they're like, what is that? I want to sign my kid up for that. And I was like, oh, it's through my daughter's like private school. You can't sign up. But then a light bulb went off, like, oh, I can create this through my own business though. And there's a demand for it. And especially it took off during COVID, because all the parents wanted to get their kids away from their iPads, computers, video games, get them outside, get them without their masks on, connecting with each other and playing and running and getting exercise. And so that's now become a huge part of our business as well.
Yeah. So what does that look like for somebody out there who might be listening, and somebody like Tristan, who's back to square one for him and doing maybe a job that he didn't love? But if there's other communities, I guess, what's the framework there, and how do you approach schools or youth programs, and what does that look like on a kind of weekly basis for those programs?
Yeah, so we started off through my daughter's school, asking them if we could kind of use the school in the summertime as our hub for our trail running and forest skills camp. And so basically it's really just introducing kids to the local trail networks, getting them out into the forest, teaching them, you know, etiquette and forest, you know, stewardship, and just basic stuff, you know, like when you come up behind somebody, on your left, thank you, you know, picking up trash, leave no trace principles, and teaching them some philosophy type stuff about, you know, you don't have to become an ultra marathon runner. You don't even have to run. You can hike. But if you can take anything away from this, like, you need to incorporate getting outside and getting into nature as a regular part of your life. So it doesn't have to be some extreme, like you need to run 100-miler, right? Or you need to even compete, you know, because a lot of people don't like to compete. So that started with 1 week a summer. Now now we fill them up 2 weeks per summer. And then that kind of like led us into these after school youth programs, which we call the PAC, which stands for the Portland After School Connection for Kids. And that's more like movement based. It's less running, so to speak. It's more like cooperative games and challenges and just getting together. I mean, yesterday we played kickball, and you know, who doesn't love playing kickball, right? So
I don't know, but that person's weird, whoever they are.
Yeah. So that's 2 hours Mondays and Wednesdays from 4 to 6 p.m. after school. And it's great. We just put it out there through our community, which we built up. So a lot of those parents really hold those same values. And a 2 hour block of time is nice for parents too, because then they can actually go out for a run themselves, like a proper run, and then come back and pick up their kid and go have dinner together. And
yeah.
So
and so is it do you do individual programs for like individual schools, or did multiple like schools all get represented and come for like this one kind of blend together in these 2 sessions a week?
Yep. As of right now, we just it's open to whoever wants to sign up. So we have kids, which is awesome too, because then you get kids meeting from different schools and kind of mingling and co-mingling, and yeah, it's been great. And so we're looking to expand that more, because right now we just do 8 through 12 ages, and so we're expanding and thinking about starting something like a teen wolf kind of vibe with that incorporates trail running and stuff too for teenagers.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And then so it's something for those not already familiar with Yassine. Yassine has been, I think, open. It probably keeps you, I don't know, honest, or I don't know how to phrase it, but so in terms of the substance abuse background, Yassine's been, I think, open and picked up. You just, I think, recently I think it was a local news outlet did a story on your history of addiction and recovery, and years out from that substance abuse. But I think you being open, again, I would think keeps you honest with it. I mean, as opposed to, and also being like kind of owning it. And I imagine as opposed to putting it deep down or like in the shadows or whatever, there's a lot of people that can relate.
Yeah. Well, I was really private about it for a long time, including when I met you and knew you all the years living in Ithaca. And even moving out here several years after I moved to Portland, I was very private about it. And it got to the point where I had made a lot of friends, but I couldn't remember what friends I've told and what friends I didn't tell. And then I finally just hit this point of like, why am I hiding this? Like, this is a part of my story. This is who I am. This got me to where I am right now. And one of the things they say in recovery is that to keep it, you need to give it away.
Mm-hmm.
So by giving it away and by helping others, you actually remain sober. And so thankfully, since 2004, I haven't had to take a drink or drug. But a big part of that is because I continue to try to help other people that are struggling. And so by just becoming a fishbowl or an open book about it, I felt like there may have been some downsides of doing that, but I felt like the pros far outweighed the cons in terms of just being completely public about it. And it turned out to be a right decision, because now, like I said, I work with the Alano Club of Portland, where they hire us to lead these track workouts and to lead these different activities to help people that are like coming out of rehab and like getting their life back together. And like, we have people that donate shoes and gear, and like that, these folks might not be able to afford, hydration packs and like Nike trail shoes and those types of things. And we're able to like give those people shoes and like outfit them. And it's a hugely rewarding work to be doing right now for me at 17 years sober, and continuing to, because I'm not cured, I'm I just one day at a time, as they say. So, but these are some ways that help me to stay on the front lines and to see people struggle, to remind me that like, I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back there. And if I can help out, and I can help out the way that the old timers in recovery helped me out when I came in the door, I think that's another really huge component, is that like, if the old timers just like, okay, I'm better now, I have a great life now, see you later. If they weren't in those rooms when I walked in the door, I might have left.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw people there that had put together time, had rebuilt their lives, had businesses, had families, had jobs, had like, people trusted them, had a rich, full life. And I was like, that's something I wanted. And so, yeah, one day at a time. And,
one day at a time. Nice work getting there. You wanted it, but like, here you are, right? I mean, and who knows what tomorrow brings, to your point that the struggle, never goes away, and it's one day at a time, or, 1 year at a time. But
well, running, in that article that is on the Columbia website on the Tough Mother Guide, I think the writer really articulated it well about the parallels the parallels in ultra running or in running in general that are in life too. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna go through those tough times and rough times, right? And you don't just numb it out, or you don't just have a rough time in an ultra and then say, I'm going to take like 10 Advil. You know what I mean?
Well, you might, but then, yeah, that's probably not going to go well.
Yeah.
Right. Uh-huh.
So I think there's just so many parallels about working through those low points, about feeling all the emotions rather than being like, ooh, I don't like that feeling. I'm angry. I'm going to drink, or I'm, resentful, or I'm sad, or I'm depressed, just feeling all the emotions, whether you're happy or sad or everything in between, and just working through those and just having the human experience,
Yeah. So you've had some pretty, also for those of you who aren't familiar with Yassine and his track record, and shout out to the Peacock who we had on last week, and maybe we'll get there with a little Badwater comments a bit. Yassine has had quite a number of pretty incredible experiences in his career. Several Western States finishes, including a top finish of 9th in 2013. He was 4th here at Cayuga Trails in 2014 in a fairly solid field. Part of the IAU World team, I think, in Annecy in 2015. I think that went down. Probably the pinnacle performance, I would guess, of his career is the first place at the Peterson Ridge Rumble 20 miler in 2012.
I thought you were going to say Virgil Crest.
Yeah, could be with Iroquois and Virgil. But you've also had, I think, beyond just the accolades or I guess some of those top tier events in terms of competition, you've also had the experience, and it's taken you some pretty amazing locations. So looking through some of your event history, you've been to some beautiful places some of the courses I know, a couple I've not been to, but know of, from like Waldo to Miwok to Dipsy to Cayuga Trails to Bighorn to CCC to Silver Falls. My gosh, that's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
To Hurt 100. I mean, the beauty of that you've been to some really cool places. So thinking back to some of the, I guess, the highlight moments, let's even start to some of, I guess, the career highlights. When you think back of the first things that come to mind, as you're getting up into years, it might be the Timberline Schemo race that you just took 24th in an hour and 6.
I had a University of Oregon onesie on, and I was on a split board. So I was first split boarder. So yeah.
Also in the onesie division, dude, maybe I need to get a onesie like that. Yeah. That's outstanding.
No, I think, looking back, it's interesting. Like my brother, who's been getting really into ultras over the last few years, and he's run a lot of your races and stuff like that too. And he now kind of understands like what ultra sign up is, and like what these, he understands like what the metrics are, like what is a 10 mile with 2,000 feet of climbing, right? He knows what that is now. He knows what a 50K is. He's done a 50K, and he went through my ultra sign up one day, and he's like, geez, dude, you've done a lot of races, man. And I do feel very fortunate. I've been able to really travel all over the world and go to these amazing places on foot and experience different cultures and different parts of this country, which is so beautiful. And it's been a really fruitful running career for me. And I still am super motivated about going to the races, but I also realized that, like, yes, I have had the ability to go off to these far off places, but I just also realized that my backyard is like one of the top places. And so, as you said, Silver Falls is like 90 minutes down the road, and I can just pop down there on a weekend. And I'm still like a kid in a candy store out here in the Pacific Northwest. And I'm just so grateful that I found this passion for something that like lights me up inside, that I can like put a race on the calendar and like train for it and then go experience it and run through the mountains and run through the trails and connect with other like-minded folks. And yeah, it's been great. It's just like there's too many places to go and too little time, really.
Mm-hmm. What's the when you think back, and it's tough when I'm putting you on the spot like in the moment, but let's go top 3 scenic races that you'd be like saying to a friend, gosh, this was just so beautiful. Put it on your list to go get this one done.
Oh man, UTMB is definitely at the top. UTMB, like the views, the dramatic mountains of like circumnavigating the tallest mountain in the Alps, traveling through 3 countries on foot was one of the most difficult things I've done, but also probably the most scenic, surreal. I mean, there were times where it like looks like you are literally on a green screen. So that's up there. Did a race in New Zealand, which was really beautiful as well. It's called the Tarawera 100K. Unfortunately, I didn't finish, but still running out in New Zealand was another top spot. And so many places in our country are beautiful too. Like you mentioned, Bighorn, Cayuga Trails, man. You got to say, Cayuga Trails, as a plug for you and your 50 miler, like that is a pretty special course, like running through Treeman and Buttermilk, you know, and that's my roots. You know what I mean? That's where I fell in love with trail running. I always tell people that's where I caught the bug. And every time I visit Ithaca, I go there.
It is right. Yeah. And thanks for that plug. But as I've gotten out too, I've seen the Cayugas in other places, which was my first experience, I think, running in Silver Falls, but also in the Gorgeous course. And Ellie commented here, asked if Ellie, if you're going to be coming to Gorge Waterfalls this weekend, and knowing that's also been a personal course for you, also seeing some of those green areas and waterfalls kind of pumping out of the feeder creeks.
Ellie's running, huh?
Ellie is running. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I will see you at the Cascade Locks aid station. I have a special surprise for you.
Nice. That's going to be you and your uni. This is going to be that special surprise.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, so the gorge is up there. The thing about the gorge and Silver Falls and the Columbia River Gorge here, it reminds me so much of Ithaca. It's almost like a bigger version of Ithaca. Portland is a bigger version of Ithaca. I mean, there's a lot of similar type people that live here. There's the geographical similarities. And I think that's one of the reasons I love it so much too. And, you know, I went running last Friday. You literally run behind a waterfall. There's a tunnel that got blown out by dynamite, and you run through a tunnel behind this like 70-foot waterfall. And it's just like single track. And it's just like, you know, you're just running with your friends, and you've done this trail several times. And it's just, every time you do it, you're just like, this is just stupid. I mean, this list isn't real, you know? I mean, this is just right down the road from us. So I always tell people that I coach too, to like keep that gratitude, because wherever you are, things can become like mundane, and like you get desensitized to things. And like, you know, we have like 5,000 acres right next to the city that we can run at, and people get bored about doing the same loops and the same, you know, Forest Park running. And I'm just like, you don't understand how special that is. I don't care how much it's raining or how muddy it is or how sick you are. You have 5,000 acres right next to the city, and 70 plus miles of trails right next to the city. So,
and beautiful. I mean, that's, you know, what us Beast Coasters, as much as we may like our to rave or to boast about our Beast Coast technical whatever. I mean, whatever, like there's still something about those flowy, non-technical, you know, trails or whatever that are just amazing.
Yep. And I love
right there in Portland.
I love coming back to the East Coast too. And, you know, like I said, I grew up on the East Coast, and the Beast Coast has a special place in my heart. And I like it all. I think that's one of the things I've always valued in my running career, is like trying to not peg myself as a certain distance or a certain type of runner. I've done like the technical, like Hurt 100 and real rugged. I've attended, the Badwater. I've done the Western States and the shorter distance races, the skimo races, in a onesie, in a split board, and just getting out there and experiencing different and being versatile. I think that that goes a long way, and for your mind and body.
Mm-hmm. I guess because you just mentioned, or we both just mentioned or referenced Beast Coast a couple times, and I've seen it come up, and it can be I guess, impassioned topic, especially for those of us living in the East. I think that, I guess that conversation, right? And yeah. I guess I was thinking today that maybe it'd be good to dig into writing an article on it, and I can go deeper, and I have my own thoughts on it. It's a fairly convoluted, I think, discussion with a lot of points. But from your vantage point now, being somebody who has the East Coast roots, and particularly Northeast, and then going out from, it was, so for those who don't know Yassine, his wife Erica took a collegiate job out there, and so that was really the reason for them moving to Oregon as a family. So it wasn't you saying, I want to go live in the Pacific Northwest or run these trails, or the Beast Coast isn't good enough or whatever. But now that you're there, I mean, it's truly an amazing place. And I definitely have the East Coast roots, but I won't hesitate to say that some of the non-technical trails and the I guess, prolific mountain views in certain areas and the wide open spaces, like, it's pretty amazing. So in your experience, I don't know, like weighing, I guess, in on that topic, but in terms of maybe why the East Coast doesn't get and because I guess you've now been an athlete of a couple teams. You were with Innovate for a while. You're with Columbia now. Did you have one ahead of Innovate, or was that your first?
Innovate was my first. I was with them for like a decade, and then Columbia now, Columbia Montreal.
And so I guess Innovate was one of those relative. They were early on in things, and they, I think, in that sense, were an outlier in that maybe they had more East Coast representation, just based with some corporate roots in Massachusetts, and them coming out of some of the fells over in England or the UK. And you saw, I guess, around that time, some of the Salmon athletes, I think they had some maybe more on the East Coast. You saw Chrissy and the team that she put together after Ian with the Montreal team had some of the East Coast roots. But otherwise, it seems to, for sure, swing toward favoring in both athletes as well as where they put their money, for sure, the West Coast. And so, I mean, from your vantage point, why do you think that is, or do you think it's just, I don't know. I mean, and again, I have a lot of thoughts there, but from your vantage point in that East Coast versus West Coast and the size of the markets and why that is.
Yeah, it's a good question. I tend to not get too into it just because I feel like, I think all places have their pros and cons, and me personally, I feel like when I moved out here, coming from Ithaca, where, as you know, and if you don't know, Ithaca is very cold in the wintertime. So you either got to run on the roads with, multiple pairs of tights on. And I used to run with ski goggles on out there, the hand warmers, the whole nine, spikes in my running shoes, and you're on the road, you're on the ice. And so it basically kind of limits your running a little bit and the quality of your training. Whereas when I moved to Portland, not only do I have bigger, longer climbs, I can actually run through the entire year and not even wear tights. I can wear shorts year round. And so I think that temperate climate alone allowed my running to take on a new proportion. Like, I was getting so much more vert. I had so much more access to trails, and I was able to do it at a high level year round. And I felt like that's when my running really started taking off.
Mhm.
So there's that. And then there's the inspiration point, like you had mentioned, like, you know, I was going to these places that everything wasn't dead, you know, like I was going to these rainforests in the wintertime where, you know, it's technicolor green and you know, it's a lot of rain, but a lot of the rain keeps everything nice and green, right? So I was super inspired to, like you said, like running and exploring these new places, going to these vistas, and I think that is a big part of it for me too. It's not about how fast I can run some race. It's about the process, and it's about the inspiration and connecting with nature. And it's not about just, you know, how fast I can run this race. I do like to I am competitive, and I do like to try to maximize my potential, but there's so much more to it than that in me.
Mhm.
So, you know, so much of it's about your outlook too. It's like wherever you go, there you are. And early in my life, I used to always blame it on the geographic places that I was at. Like, oh, like this place sucks. It's ass backwards. I'm gonna move to this other place, and then I'd get there, and wherever I went, there I was, and I would do the same shit, and then I would blame it on the people, the university that I'm at, whatever, you know, and that I would just pack all my stuff and move to another place, and I would follow the same pattern. But once I really started looking internally at my life and changing my behaviors and my way of thinking, then I started like noticing like there's beauty right outside your front door, you know, and really just exploring. But, you know, the Cascades, mountain range, and all the volcanoes that we look out at all the time. I mean, it is a very unique and special place for me, and I think it's great training grounds for what I do.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely a call there. And this was, at least for me personally, and when I moved also west after college, it was I don't know. I mean, yes, I'd been to the mountains up in New England. I'd spent time, I guess, skiing there as a kid. I hadn't done that much in terms of running and hiking. But living at various points in the West, even in Portland, when you are looking out and you are seeing this like peak in the distance, I mean, there's a certain very primal inspiration there. And like, I know even living here in like Ithaca, there'll be certain like cloudy days, and if the cloud layer is kind of low, it takes on the shape of what I remember to be maybe the skyline of the Cascades in the distance from when I lived in Oregon and there too. And it's fun to just imagine that that's kind of the mountains in the distance for like just a minute.
Yeah.
And I think there's a very primal draw there. And so, yes, you have some
Yep.
exposed, I think, areas, and you have some beautiful trails here in the East. But for me, I don't know, there's something very primal and energetic about being in some of those places in the Rockies or the West.
Yeah, and especially now that I've lived out here for nearly 13 years, now when I look out and see, you know, Mount Hood, Mount Adams, Mount St. Helens, Mount Rainier, you know, from my neighborhood, and I know that I've been to the top of all of those, and I've circumnavigated all of them. It just like conjures up all these memories, and it also motivates you like to do more. It really like, it's just like, it just invokes that that sense of adventure, you know, like they're calling.
Yeah,
They're
totally.
calling. Yeah.
Right. Makes it a lot stronger drive to answer that call.
Yeah.
All right. So in addition to some of the, I guess, amazing locations, you've also had some rough patches in terms of, I don't even know if they're necessarily rough patches, but right. I mean, every race doesn't necessarily shake out or FKT effort as you'd like. So you've had some DNFs at Badwater, CCC, Fuego y Agua. If I just probably butchered that pronunciation.
No, you said it right. Fuego y Agua. Yep.
Yeah. And so
I finished CCC though.
Oh, you did. Oh, yeah. Okay. So yeah, I
TDS.
that.
Yes. I finished TDS, and I actually got stopped at TDS last summer because a guy fell to his death who was just in front of me. I don't know if you heard about that.
I may have, but I'm not remembering.
It was the UTMB race called TDS, and in the middle of the night, I just finished a 5,000-foot climb, and I was actually feeling like I wanted to drop anyway, but I got stopped at a mountain pass because unfortunately a runner just ahead of me slipped in a really dangerous spot and fell to his death. And so they ended the race, and I was one of the first people that got stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty traumatic.
Yeah.
To spend the night in the mountains, which was very mentally draining as well.
So talk about, I guess, some of those patches for runners that don't have necessarily the experience that you have behind you. And now that you've got, you're getting to be old man status here with the Masters category. So how do you, because I know you've had some good blow ups. I don't remember your weakness, stomach. What typically gets you?
So I don't have that many weaknesses. No, I'm just kidding. No,
actually, I don't have any. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I don't have any that I can think of. But no, so I will say the heat has gotten me a few times. And so those races that you had mentioned, Badwater and Fuego y Agua, and Hurt is another one. I've finished Hurt 3 out of 4 times. So I've DNF'd Hurt 1 time. But those 3 right there, the heat got the best of me, and I just got a little behind in, hydration and electrolytes, and, and also, I'm not just going out there to finish them, I'm racing them. So I just pushed myself, and, for Badwater, for example, when it's 127 degrees and you're pushing yourself, there's something that's just wrong about that.
There's a lot that's just wrong about that.
You're in the middle of summer in Death Valley, and so I think I did that on my 40th. So I did your race, your 100-miler, on my 30th, and I did Badwater on my 40th. And I also promised my family and my mom and my wife and that I wasn't going to go out there and hurt myself and do anything stupid. And I got to the point at mile 100 at Badwater, 130 out of 135, where my body was telling me some really alarming signals. And that's always a tough thing because so much of ultra running is overriding those signals that your body gives you. Right. But there comes to a certain point where we as runners know our bodies so well, and that's one of the things I love about being a runner, is that I know every nook and cranny in my body, right? And I knew something wasn't right. I've always prided myself on never having blood in my urine, and always taking care of myself, and and I urinated like coffee basically. And I had some weird heart rhythms and some things that were happening, and was just feeling off, my central nervous system was off, to the point where okay, this is dangerous. You're in a place called Death Valley, and you're in the middle of summer, and it was 127 degrees, and you've been running all throughout the night, all day, and going into another night on the road where the convection currents were in the 150s. So that's when I threw the towel for that one. So I would say out of all the DNFs I've had, the one I mentioned in New Zealand was a stomach issue, and the other 3 were heat related. But thankfully I haven't had, comparatively through all the races I've done, I haven't had a huge amount of DNFs. But I think the more you do, the more you push that envelope, and the more you start doing these longer distance ultras, especially, the probability goes way up for DNFs, right? Either through a biomechanical issue, an injury, or stuff just going awry, or mental breakdown or something. But yeah, I felt like I've been pretty solid, but definitely have had a couple of injuries that took me out of races, and then the ones I just mentioned.
And do you have a certain mantra for yourself in those tough moments? I mean, it's a good point where I think certain people everybody to a certain extent in ultra, but some people more effectively than others are able to control their central governor and kind of tamp back down some of the signals that the body are giving. Others are less successful in kind of overriding those signals, and the body or the mind more effectively will then shut down the body. But is there something that you've done intentionally for yourself or coaching to train that?
Totally. I mean, that's another thing that I work with like the athletes I coach too. It's like everybody puts so much emphasis on the physical training. You can run all the miles, do all the workouts, run all the mountains, hills, but if you don't have your mental game on, when push comes to shove in these long distance races, you can easily shut that switch off and be DNFing. So that's one of the things I talk about a lot, is that internal dialogue, that self-talk, the mantras, the visualization. And personally, I've used many different things over the years, and I continue to always go back to where I came from before I started running, the suffering that I went through in my active addiction, and running with gratitude that I'm not there anymore goes a long way. And really just, and I try to remind people at the aid stations of like, hey, just remember, folks, your life is so good that you had to pay money to put yourself in this situation, right? So nobody's forcing you to do this. But, part of the reason why we named our business Wy'east Wolfpack was from a story that actually I heard from a guy in Ithaca in early sobriety. And he was a Native American, and he talked about the story of the two wolves. He always talked about it in meetings, about the story of the two wolves and which wolf will you feed. And for those of you that don't know the story, it's an old Cherokee legend where like an elder is talking to a child and tells the child that every person has two wolves inside of them that are at opposition every day of your life. One is the good wolf, which represents, positivity, gratitude, love, kindness, all that. The other is the negative wolf, the bad wolf, which represents, fear, resentment, anger, jealousy, negativity. And, the child asks the elder, well, which one wins? And the elder simply says, the one that you feed. So you feed the wolves with your thoughts. So when you're out there and you're suffering, as you will in an ultra marathon or in life, you have the opportunity to feed. Whatever one you feed is going to get stronger. So, and I definitely am not Mr. Positive all the time. And I have definitely fed that bad wolf, and that bad wolf got really full and strong with thoughts, and he won on that day. But, many times I recognize that I am feeding the bad wolf, and I can switch my thoughts to feeding the good wolf and like find some sort of silver lining and positivity. And that's part of the reason why we named our business Wolfpack, was because of that story and because of the importance, not only in ultra running and endurance sports, but in life too.
Mm-hmm. And so for that business, because that's been a big part of, and it's awesome that your career has happened to fuse with just really who you are, right? On so many levels. I mean, the core you're just talking about, there again, weaving back in the history with substance abuse paired with the activity or the engagement, what happens to be trail and ultra for you, and awesome that you've been able to weave it all together. So Wy'east is very much a representation of you and Willie and where you're coming from. So that being a huge part, with that, I guess for the clients that you work with, let's maybe think in the moment on the clients that you train, because I think that this is also an interesting thing too. I mean, we already mentioned it, where when you were getting into it, when I was getting into it, this wasn't like a thing. Like,
you were the only person I knew that had tried 100-miler.
Yeah,
I mean, I always tell people that. They're like, how did you get into it? I'm like, I just started reading some stuff about these people that did it. I knew this guy, Ian Golden, who had a running store. Him and Andrew Weiser, like, those two guys at the store were the only people I knew that had tried one. So I used to always I felt bad. I would come down to your store and like really not buy anything and just kind of like ask questions and like pick your brain about these ultras, you know?
And so, man,
There wasn't
where
a
it
lot
went
of people
from,
that were doing it. Yeah, there weren't a lot of people doing it.
yeah, there weren't. And so you've been a part of the evolution and created something, but you know, it may have not necessarily, well, it may not have been as viable a path 15, 20
Nope.
years ago, or a path at all.
No.
So let's talk about, like, I guess the coaching training angle, because now you've seen a lot. And so but what I was going to say, wow, the flooding of the market, even here, you talking with me tonight, right? There's so many media outlets. I mean, I think had I started doing a podcast, I don't know, 10 years or so ago, it may have been a different story. And often I think of myself doing this as like, dude, who are you to do this? I think, I don't know, maybe it was like Dylan's free trail popped up on one of my feeds like this morning. And then another one on from several, I forget who did it, was Kareen Malcolm and a couple other individuals doing one. And I'm seeing these people that have become like these pinnacle athletes in our sport. And some of them who I've met and know they're just an exceptional character. And yeah, I've kind of been around the space for a while, but I'm like, dude, who are you? How do you compete against the chops of like Dylan Bowman or somebody like Kareen or like people that have been doing it forever? But I guess I'm part of that. The space is so big now and so crowded. You as a coach, you would have gotten into it fairly early, but now it's insane how many coaches are out there. Like literally, like everybody's a coach anymore.
Yeah.
And I also think of even the history of like athletes. I don't know, for some reason, I always think back to some of the stories that I read in a book, Running with Legends, which is, I think, an exceptional book for those of you who haven't checked it out. But it goes into some of the world's best distance runners of maybe through, let's just say, the 80s. I don't know when they kind of topped out in participation, but I remember at least one of the stories. And so they present these individuals, their accolades, and they also go into some of their favorite training workouts and a little bit about them and then their performances. And so I remember, I think it was like Emil Zatopek, maybe, who was a 5K, 10K Olympic champion and world record holder and an absolute beast. But if I remember right, his core workouts or his crux workouts was doing, I don't know how many, but a ton, relative ton of, not by ultra standards, but a ton of like 400-meter repeats in the woods wearing military combat boots. That just kind of was his background. He smoked cigarettes and he was like, I don't know, I forget. He was maybe like a police officer or something. And so when I think of all of how far we've come in terms of the number of people doing what, I think back to, well, you could just be Emil Zatopek or whatever, go out in the woods, put on a pair of boots and do your repeats. And so how do you, I guess, jive trying to be an expert coach and with expert training programs where it seems like there's just so much room for success and error. But how do you see coaching? And do you have a couple favorite workouts that you give clients?
Well, I would say in general, you're right. There are so many coaches out there now. And my philosophy on that is that there must be some good demand for it. And there's enough room for all of us. And that, you know, I can feed whatever wolf I want, right? I can be like, like everybody's a freaking coach now. And like, I was one of the first ones, and, you know, I can be all bitter about it. Or I could say, you know, that's great. There's people that are motivated, that want to get out there and want to like really grab the bull by the horns, hire a coach. There's obviously a demand. The sport's growing. Like there's enough room for all of us. I'm in high demand. So, and we are as a business. So, you know, I'm not complaining. If I start like drying up, then maybe I might change my outlook a little bit. But I will say, I think people, even at the highest level, like Olympians, there's a lot of Olympians living here in town in Portland, I see all the time, and they switch coaches all the time, right? Because they want to have fresh perspectives on things. They want to have different types of workouts, different philosophies. And so I think our philosophy really stems from more than just the physical. Yes, there are physical workouts and there's a certain style of coaching that we do, which really involves trying to maximize the potential with avoiding injury. So we incorporate cross training, for example, and we incorporate like prescribing different types of runs throughout the week, and really with an importance on self-care and the mental sides of things, like I had mentioned, and to really being in close contact with them. We have like an interactive approach to really connect with them on a regular basis. Most of the people we coach are local. So being able to connect with them face to face is, I feel like, really beneficial too. And to see them and be a part of their races at the aid stations that we provide locally too. So I think that's another huge component, is that they feel part of this, like something bigger. It's not just like getting a PDF training plan off of some very highly accomplished coach on the internet. There's more substance to it. There's the back and forth, the accountability. I've become friends with the majority of the people that I've coached, and like share. I'm going down to Western States this year for 2 people that I'm coaching. To crew for them and to be there and to support them, and that's the kind of stuff that I really like and value. And it's more than just putting them through or writing the magical workout. So. Every person's different, and that's where the tailored and customization comes in. So, some of my favorite workouts, definitely involve like time trial, like progression run type things, which I call it the Jeff Browning workouts, where you start easy and then you just move up the field, right? You move up and you finish your run faster than you started. And I think there's a lot of power in that too, instead of the opposite, which I tend to have done a lot early in my career. So I'm trying to, as I get older, run more like Browning.
Actually, as I was getting older though too. I mean, I think that's wonderful advice or whatever, but I don't know about for you. I think when Jeff and I when I had him on a few weeks ago, I think we went long. I forgot. I think our episode, I don't even remember how long it was.
If you were talking to Jeff, it was probably like 2 hours minimum.
It was. I think it was between
Yes.
we may have actually gone 3 hours or something to that effect. Like it was totally an ultra. But then the funny part was as well that after I hit end broadcast, I think he and I stayed on for like another 45 minutes, just maybe like chatting, and Jenny hopped on, and we were just chatting with Jenny. As well. But like one of the things, commenting on just like his age, right, in terms of getting up there at age 50 now, I mean, he definitely says I can't remember. Thanks, Kwana. Yes, it was 3 hours. Yeah, it was pretty phenomenal. And I feel like when I left him too, I was like, all right, can we, and I think we were planning on it. We'll have a follow-up episode on just honing in on nutrition and stuff along that line. Yeah. But he was saying at like age 50, the pull, even in his mind, of like the voice of like the couch or the chair or whatever, it's definitely getting stronger. So whether you say that's a wolf or that's the tree that's growing on that side of your brain, I mean, as we're getting older, that's getting louder in terms of not necessarily having more energy, but that also speaks to, I think, the race strategy. I mean, maybe there's some maturity. Maybe that's just our brains processing that we're not as young as we used to be. And, that's stupid. Don't go out that hard. Or what's the drive? So,
yeah. Well,
I don't know.
I look at it too, like people like you or like Max King or, people that have Sage, maybe people that have run competitively through, high school, college, and then gotten into ultras. I think after a certain point, like mentally you get kind of like worn down. I mean, could you speak to that a little bit? I mean, would you
so. This has come up in a couple
because I didn't do that. I didn't run. I didn't run in high school. I didn't run in college. Like I picked it up in my late 20s. So I feel like I had a little less wear and tear on my body, and also mentally, I wasn't used to like going through workouts all the time, all through my collegiate and high school. So it was all new to me.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I mentioned a couple episodes when I was first getting into it, I think I was coming off of the vantage point of seeing, still equating or seeing what would happen in the ultra space versus marathoning. Like I had never had an interest in, like I preferred cross country, and I was a steeplechaser in track and did pretty well there. But like these, in some ways, I think that was just my passion for those types of things. But it was also me because I'm really weak between the ears. Like I'm really just kind of a wuss up there. And so I think that in certain ways that was me also avoiding things that are really uncomfortable. Like I know how hard a mile is when you really race it, like so painful. And when I think of like a marathon you could really take to just below kind of full out effort. And when you're going into like long stretches with no excuse to really kind of like back off or whatever, gosh, man, that sounds terribly like uncomfortable or painful. Yeah. And so that was my mental avoidance in not going in that direction. Cause I was like, I don't want to hurt like that. And then when I was thinking of then comparing what would happen in ultra with marathoning, you'd seen these marathoners that literally they probably have like a few like pinnacle efforts in them. And then that's it. Like they're you can only go that deep into the well there without really just draining the well. And so my kind of ignorant vantage point, because it was still a relatively new space, I think when I was getting around ultra in terms of it hadn't really grown up too much yet. Like I didn't think that would really happen in ultra because it would be more split up and the effort would be a little bit less intense. But then you started seeing some of these young guns come in and throwing down these like phenomenal efforts. And for some reason, I always dwell mentally like on the Skags, like these young guns that were like wicked fast, but then they'd go out and they'd literally like take no nutrition or whatever, like on a hot day over like 100K or really minimal. And then it would just like torch their systems. Or you'd see people like Jeff Rose who got in and went to the well really deep several times and like his system just didn't recover from it. And so then I started thinking, well, I guess it's ultra too. And so I think that you can get kind of scorched. I think that I didn't race enough. And I think in starting the events in the event company, which wear me out more than running them myself, I think that took my energy and my emotion. So I just never explored, I think, what I maybe really could have done in the ultra space. But
well, to speak to that, early on in my career, especially when I moved to Portland, I was like a kid in a candy store when I moved out here. So I was like over racing. You could almost do a race like every weekend out here. And like I said, you could go year round. And so what I found was that I started to I was either forced into some downtime by some injury, or I was not getting any returns on my training. So after like a couple seasons of doing that, I basically told myself, now I need to plan a strategic, periodized downtime. All athletes do it. Olympians do it. You need to take some downtime mentally and physically to let not only your muscles, joints, connective tissues and everything heal, but your mind and your internal system, like your endocrine system, right? You had just mentioned, right? It's not good to have your adrenals squeezing all the time. You need to give your system a break and it's all relative. But so I found once I started planning, and it's usually like after 100-miler or something, which is a good time to take some downtime. I would plan like a nice little block of training, a couple weeks off completely. And then I start easing back into some like cross training type stuff. And what happens is during that downtime is you go back to the source of like why you do this. And you're driving down the street and you see somebody running and you're like, oh, I can't wait to get back to running. And, and then you start scheming like what you want to do next during that time. And that system has worked really well for me and has allowed me to have the longevity in the sport is not getting that FOMO mentality of like, I got to just go, because I don't feel like that's sustainable. And that's, I think, where you've seen those people flame out a little bit. And, their overtraining syndrome is real. Adrenal fatigue is real. And it's for lack of a better term, it's an extreme sport. that I participate in. And so, you know, everybody always wants to talk about balance. And it's hard to find balance in a very unbalanced sport. But I found for me is the nutrition, the self-care, the periodized downtime, and the cross training and strength workouts and stuff as I get older really help.
Are there core tenets or elements of your some of those pieces you just mentioned? Nutrition? Do you follow anything in terms of supplements or certain diet or anything that you really get behind with some of your athletes?
I've been inspired by my buddy Scott Jurek. I've been plant-based vegan ever since 2008. Actually, right after Iroquois 100, I went completely plant-based.
So that's why Iroquois was the. I mentioned Peterson and Ridge Rumble, but let's be honest. I mean, your career kind of peaked with the Iroquois win. I mean, you came back for maybe the Virgil Crest win, but it's been kind of a downhill slide since then. So maybe we can attribute it to the vegan diet there.
Could be. It could be. Yeah, I was having some issues with like a sensitivity to dairy. So started reading some books, listening to some podcasts, and watched a few documentaries. And I just was like, you know what? I'm going to try it. There's these endurance athletes that are doing it successfully. And I tried it and it worked really well for me. Obviously, there's Jeff Browning on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, and that works really well for him. I think there's a lot of the human body is an amazing system that can operate on a high level on many different types of diets. So I think people just need to find what works best for them. But this is something that seemed to work really well for me and allow me to be light and clean and recover quickly. And it, you know, like as they say, if it ain't broke, it works.
Yeah. And how about rest? You get a certain amount of hours of sleep. What's your target?
Yeah, that has been a little touch and go as over the last few years as I've gotten more. Our business has grown, but I always try to prioritize that if I can. So a minimum 7 hours a night. Not always, but I would say like 80% of the nights I'm at least seven hours.
Yep.
I do a lot of self-care. Yeah. A lot of self-care, a lot of contrast bathing, massage.
For those that don't know contrast bathing, tell them what that is. Cause totally. I don't do it, but I'm a fan of it in terms of how it works.
Well, I go to a kind of a bougie place here in Portland. Shout out to Knot Springs. But they have these different soaking pools of different temperatures. So you can soak in, you know, warm and then go to a hot one with jets. And then from there you go to like a 45-degree cold soak. And then from there to a dry sauna, 200 degrees, back to the cold, eucalyptus steam room, back to the cold, and then back to the hot tub. And it's that, you know, they have a thing on the wall that explains about like why that's so good for your circulatory system. The cold reduces the swelling. The vasoconstriction dilation is like flushing out toxins, creating a pumping system for your venous system and your lymphatic system. And yeah, it's great. They don't allow phones in there. So I just go in there like 2 to 3 times a week, do my routine, you know, just mentally kind of disconnect a little bit and try to like visualize, you know, and just be with myself and my breathing, and all the while doing great things for my body. And that has really been super helpful as like I said, as I'm aging. It's reversing the aging process.
Buddy, you don't look like you've aged a day since the last time I saw you, or since you probably look older when you finished Virgil Iroquois than you do now. So I guess that's working. All right. So knowing you got to peel off here pretty soon for to lead your workout here, let's do maybe a couple of fun things. One, you sent me a clip, which I'm thankful for. I'm going to start organizing those, but knowing just I've had fun seeing some of your animal encounters. Let's go a couple. So for those of you who don't know, animals tend to, I think it's birds, right? Birds tend to like Yassine. So take us through a fun animal encounter or two over the course of your running career.
So I do have this weird fear of like birds flying over my head. So I don't know where that came from, but I've always
Prior
just
life.
yeah. So I mean, I had a bird like fly into my apartment one time, and like I put on like a bike helmet, and like I had like an umbrella. I was running around the apartment, like, and I called my wife at work, and I was like, "There's a bird in the house!"
Help!
Yes, yes. And one route, actually, when I used to run in Ithaca, I used to run up by Warren Road, kind of like the business park by the airport, and I used to come around this turn, and there was like a red-winged blackbird nest there, and like it used to like come after my head, and I mean I used to dread it. I would like come around the corner, and I'd be like, oh, maybe he's not here today, and then all of a sudden he'd like pop out of the cattails and like come after me aggressively. And so I have this fear of birds. So I was running in Portland. I don't know if I shared this one with you or not, but I'm running down the trail with my friend Amy Sprosted. And as you can see, I have a bald head. I was running behind her, and all of a sudden I felt in an instant, what my first thought was somebody threw a fleece blanket on my head. But I just ducked down, and I felt huge wings on the side of my head, and I felt the soft underbelly of a bird, but it flew off, and it was a barred owl. So an owl just dive bombed me, landed right on my bald head, and was on the perch looking at me, and I was like freaked out. I was just like, "Oh my God, what the heck?" And she's laughing at me. I'm like, "That thing just hit me." And it's looking at me like it wanted to come at me again. So, I mean, I must have looked like I was on like drugs or something, because I'm running down the trail, like just like looking like, I mean, like a crazy person, like in fear of getting and those things are silent too. I mean, they just come at you. So yeah, getting dive bombed by birds and owls especially is just so frightening. I've had a few other animal encounters with birds. One was like some sort of like mountain pheasant or something out here, and it like would not let me cross the trail, and it like was standing its ground, and I kept like trying to go like out into the woods and around it, and it was like charging me, like bluff charging me. Terrifying. Terrifying. It's not like the cougars and the mama bears with cubs, like, those are scary too, but like it's the birds that scare the living daylights out of me.
It was funny for one of the years that you were back at Cayuga, and because for some reason I just have this mental association with Yassine and animals, that I happened to catch you in the one section. For those of you who know the Cayuga course, and well, it doesn't matter. Part of the Cayuga course was in this fairly open wooded section, not a lot of ground cover because it stays so wet, and you got this cross traffic coming. And I'm just checking on runners, cheering people on in there. And I see, I think Yassine coming through, but then I also hear this just like trampling through the woods, and I think it's going to be somebody that's like off course and coming in from like a different way. And I'm about to say like, "No, you're off course here." Yeah. The thing was flying through the brush. Yeah, and it was a deer or a couple deer. Right, must have missed you by like a foot, going like,
oh my God,
full tilt. And I was just like, well, that speaks to Yassine and his energy and animals out there.
Right. It's so weird. I ran that section with my brother last year when I visited, and I told him that same story. I was just like, dude, these deer were like running so fast, like low to the ground, like running like 30 miles an hour through there. I forgot that you were there.
Yeah.
Another thing I remember about your Cayuga race is I got to the top of that Lickbrook climb once, and it was sunny, and there was a big boulder near the top of the climb, and I looked over, and there was a huge black snake on the rock, and I was just like, oh, it was just sitting there, and I was like, oh, somebody, I was like, whew, I thought that was real. Somebody put a fake snake on there to scare us. And then I found out, no, it was real.
Yeah, it's either the rat snakes or the milk snakes, I forget, but yeah, they're occasionally on course, and and they're pretty harmless, but man, they are big, and
it was huge. I mean, it was like literally like 3 or 4 feet.
Yeah. Right on. So for any that are watching, any sage words of advice for people, and that could be pretty general. It could be for those just, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's such a broad concept. Maybe that's even just a nonsense of a question. But anything that would have been, I guess, fun to get into, or shout outs, or things that with the last couple minutes here that we might have that you would have thought maybe we'd talk about or it'd be fun to touch on. No pressure if not.
Yeah, no. I think you kind of touched on it earlier in our talk, which thank you so much for having me on. It's great to see you. You haven't aged either, and it's great to just reconnect with you. You touched on, folks being kind of like re-questioning their careers, right? In these last 2 years, people people are just like, I don't want to settle for something I don't want to do. And so I always talk about rocking chair shit. And rocking chair shit for me is someday when I'm sitting in my rocking chair and I look back on my life, I want to look back and say I went for it and I did some cool stuff. And I feel like I continually am doing rocking chair shit. But one of my fears is to be sitting in the rocking chair and saying, I wonder if I could have done that. Mm-hmm. I wonder if I could have done that, or I should have done that. Why didn't I do that?
What's one of those things, man? Because I'm feeling, even just last night, I'm sitting here, this arm is tough because I partially tore my acromioclavicular ligament last night climbing at the gym. Oh. And I just kept throwing for this one route, and I heard this pop, crunch, whatever, and kind of there it went. And I was coming back from plantar fasciitis fired up on one. I had a torn tendon over here from race production stuff that just didn't heal, and I finally got it injected a month ago. So my body's definitely feeling the toll. So for you, knowing that you're creeping up on those years, anything that's still on the bucket list that you are this needs to be in my rocking chair lineup, anything that's still out there that you're I gotta get to this while I still can?
Oh yeah, I have tons of stuff. Of course, I want to do so many things. Specifically, I want to do hard rock. I haven't done, so I'm getting a qualifier this year to get back into that lottery system, which I put in for 8-10 years in a row and haven't got picked. But I'm gonna still keep trying. It's something I want to do. There's some longer FKTs I want to do. I've got a whole list of things. But the point is that life is too short. It goes by so quickly. You can always make an excuse of why you need to work or why you can't do it. But I feel like if you really want to do something, you gotta find a way to make it happen now and not try to keep putting it off. Because, I've seen so many people talk about on their deathbed about how they kept putting things off. I'll do it when my career's in order. I'll do it when the kids get older, when there's always an excuse. So you don't have to settle. Make it happen. Do rocking chair shit.
That's
my final quote.
Well, maybe I can share in some rocking chair shit with you in terms of a shared experience at some point here.
And I honestly always tell people the story about your Wasatch and how you pulled that out. I still don't know how you learned how to run after that night of shuffling.
That was quite the slog through the field of dead people. Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, we were shuffling at about a 40-minute pace.
Yeah.
And I had to give you my pants. And then all of a sudden the sun came up and Ian remembered how to run and not just run, run to the point.
And that's one of my biggest takeaways, people too, is just in those long races, just make it to sunrise, right? Just make it to sunrise.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But you know what though? That's why I really wanted to be a part of that, because you wanted to really do that. That's rocking chair shit for you. You wanted to finish that, get that monkey off your back. You wanted to get that 100-miler. And I was and I know how bad you wanted it. And I know how hard of a race Wasatch is. So I was if you'll have me, I want to come out there and be a part of that, and share that experience with you. And so you sit on your rocking chair, you will know I did Wasatch 100 and nobody can take that away from you.
And I was thankful for you to be in the mix. And I was thankful to have got a head start out of that aid station and then to drop you from there. So
I had to catch a ride to intercept you. Jesus.
Yeah, that's good.
Good memories.
Yassine, thanks for and so I'll see you hopefully coming up at Western. So if we don't connect before then, it'll be good to see you in person.
Are you going out?
Yeah, I'm gonna go out and help crew Ellie out there.
Woo!
So,
Yeah. All right.
cool.
Well, let's definitely connect down there.
Sounds good.
All right,
well,
buddy.
thanks for carving out some time. I hope it's a good workout tonight with
Yep.
the crew out there. And thanks again, Yassine. It was great
All right,
to
thank
see
you,
your
my
face and
friend.
chat.
Absolutely. Have a great night.
All right, you too.
Ciao.
All right, so thanks everybody who tuned in and went along with us here as part of this root session with Yassine. It's always good to catch up with old friends, and really that's, I think, a lot of what this trail and ultra running space is about. It's about community and the relationships that we form. Yassine and I go back quite a ways at this point, and I'm always grateful for the opportunities to reconnect. I'm grateful for all of you that are still tuning in or tuning in after the fact, and who choose to share this, who choose to support us through Patreon support, who choose to, in your next running store purchase, give us a consideration here at the Finger Lakes Running Company. We're a small store. We could use the business. If you're doing your shopping through some bigger outlet that you're just not really, I don't know, they don't really do anything for you and your community aside from an easy click, for sure give us a go at the Trails Collective store or through Finger Lakes Running Company. We will be back at you next week with you. I don't remember what the episode's about next week, but I guess I'll figure that out here in the next few days. So thanks for tuning in, and until then, I will catch you next week. See ya.